Hey tankers, Taugrim here. This is episode 23 of my Road to Unicum series. Today we look at the AMX 1390. This is the French Tier 8 light tank. The stock suspension is able to mount all of the module upgrades and the 3 pieces of equipment you'll want, so you should research the suspension last. The gun is a 6-shot autoloader with vents and a trained crew. It takes about 38 seconds to reload. The gun accuracy is pretty poor at .38, and the gun also doesn't handle very well on the move, so you want to be very careful about firing at targets when you're on the move unless you're at point blank range. The gun has pretty poor gun depression of only 6 degrees, and on top of that the turret is rear mounted, so if you want to drive over a ridge or a crest to fire down at targets, you're going to be exposing your front hull in order to get that rear mounted turret far enough forward to aim down. Long story short, this isn't a particularly good hill fighter. I'm going to talk about how to complete LT-15. That's the last of the light tank scouting missions. A lot of people like to go right here to E1 and passively scout. I actually prefer to initially start by spotting the ridge line and then spotting from hill. If you're up on hill, you can not only spot the targets that are on hill and fire at them, but more importantly, you can fire at tanks in the middle of the map and also spot the approach to city. I completed LT-15 in my 5th battle on the AMX 1390. I actually did it from the south spawn, and you need to get 4,000 total damage contributed. So you can see the T-49 is kind of going to that 1-2 line. What I'm going to do is spot the middle ridge line here along E and F. And to do this safely, what you'll want to do is get up to max speed and then cut hard parallel to the crest like I'm doing here. So I'm only exposing my turret for a brief period of time, and I'm going laterally relative to those tanks at 45 to 50 kilometers per hour. So basically I'm almost impossible to hit. Even if the players knew that I was there, they're going to have a hard time hitting me because I'm moving sideways. What some light tank drivers do, which is a really bad idea, is they go and they peek up straight and they sit there for a few seconds and then they back down. You don't want to do that because obviously it puts you at greater risk of getting hit. It's always much harder to hit a target that is moving as fast as I was driving laterally to the targets. Now you can see they've got several tanks in the middle of the map, and once we get up on hill we'll be able to provide flanking fire on the sides of their hulls and turrets, so those are generally pretty easy penetration. This tank has decent penetration of 170 with silver ammo, but obviously I'm going to be facing in some battles lots of tier 9 and tier 10 tanks, and really that's only enough penetration to penetrate those tanks from their sides or from their rear. As I come up to hill, I got up here a little bit late. You can see that our heavies are already up here, so I want to move to a position that gets me up high enough that I can passively spot the tanks that may be coming up on hill, and then I want to check and see what I have in terms of firing opportunities on the middle of the map. So I prioritize the Super Pershing over the IS since it's the higher tier tank, and my second shot tracks the Super Pershing because he's trying to back up, and what he really should be doing is turning to face his turret toward the incoming fire. That would give him a much better probability of bouncing some of these shots. My 5th and 6th shots missed, but I still landed 4 damaging shots from my opening clip, which is pretty good. Now I've got this really long reload, and I tell my team this, I've got 37 seconds left, so I'm just going to passively scout here, and we have a pretty good distribution of tanks on the map. Thankfully, we've got a critical mass of tanks on the east side of the map, in the middle around E5 and E6, and then camping along the 1-2 lines. The problem for their tanks is that they don't have a light tank currently on hill. We know that their Type 64 has been scouting around mid. I haven't seen their 1390, and these heavy tanks that are on hill for their side are very exposed to fire. And you can see how good the 1390's camo is, relative to being able to be spotted by heavy tanks. I'm not even fully behind this bush, but this IS-3 can't even see me, and we're only like 1.5 squares away. So I'm not firing, but I do have a great opportunity to polish off that IS tier 7 Soviet tank, and as soon as I fire, I back down the hill. Remember, it takes 3 seconds before 6th Sense will proc, so if you know you're close to tanks, when you fire, you should just assume that you're going to get spotted, and so I back down the hill. This is the great thing about being on hill, you have meaningful hard cover. I don't fire on this Tiger II because the hull is pretty strong, but he turns his turret to face the middle of the map, and that's an easy side penetration. And as soon as I fire, again, I assume that I'm spotted, and then back down into this ditch here for hard cover. They have a T-29 over by G7, but based on where that T-29 is placed, he can't actually fire on our tanks on hill, so he's not a threat to us, and he can't fire on the tanks in the northeast part of the map either. The Super Pershing shows up again. I fire a leading shot, and he just stopped, but then as he's backing up, I hit him 2 more times. So I've taken out almost all of his hit points, and he's pretty low now. I only have 1 shot, and I was going to hit reload, and then I spot a T-32 coming towards city. I fire my last shot, and as I'm backing down the hill, the T-32 tracks me, and I'm going to look immediately to see where the enemy tanks are aiming. So the T-29 has his gun aimed to the south, to my right, and the T-32 fires. So I opt not to use my repair kit and just wait it out, making a calculated risk that I'm going to be able to repair before any more shots are going to come my way. Now it's possible that the T-54, who has a pretty good game on their side, that he could have been aiming and firing at me, but until it feels like I'm exposed to meaningful risk, I can go ahead and wait it out. And this is important as a light tank. I only run with 1 repair kit, and it sucks when you burn your repair kit and then right after that you get ammo racked or something like that. So the Waffle TD has been very conscious of not overexposing himself on the hill, and you can see this T-29 pushed up into hill and is exposing himself to multiple lanes of fire. It's really such a waste that he did this. T-29 is one of the best tanks to play if you're going to be bottom tier in a tier 9 match, because he has a great turret, 10 degrees of gun depression, which is superb, and then a really nice gun. I'm going to sneak over here and take a look at the T-32. The Waffle TD, because I'm going to assume he has 6th sense, every time I spot him, he's very careful to back down the hill immediately. But what I'm doing, because I keep spotting him, and I know this and he knows this, it's taking his gun out of the mix because he can't come up over the ridge and fire on some of our friendly tanks. So I can kind of do this defensively to protect some of our tanks. And here you can see I've spotted the T-32, but because of the poor gun depression, I kind of have to maneuver around a little bit with the terrain in order to get my gun low enough to aim at him. And I'm thinking about firing, as you saw in one of my earlier episodes, I think it was episode 19 on the T-32, the hull armor is pretty strong. And if I start bouncing shots, it's going to take a long time for my clip to reload. I find a much better target in this Centurion 7-1. My first shot tracks him as he's backing up, and then I fire 2 more blind shots. So it turns out that one of those blind shots hit. Unfortunately, I don't finish off the 7-1, but he's now one-shottable by anything. He's down below 100 hit points. This is an anxious moment. The 1390 Nubicides over the ridge, and he chooses to go after the WZ. Now notice the whole time that he was coming down the hill, I'm backing up. And the reason why is it would take him 5 shots to kill me, right? So assuming he has a full clip, it's gonna he needs to land 5 shots, and I just need him to miss 2 in order to survive. But because the 1390 came over, we've got a Waffle TD, multiple friendlies, the E75, the WZ, able to provide cover fire, and the 1390 dies. It's a shame. If he had been playing kind of more carefully, he could have been lighting some of our tanks on the hill, basically countering what I'm doing up here, because we've dominated the eastern side of the map primarily through good spotting and team focus fire. The T-54, if you've been reading chat, some of our players have been complaining about him. He's been having a really good game, and he's been careful about conserving his HP. So he got through the first 6 or 7 minutes of this match without taking a scratch. And the thing is, you can't force it. There are certain tanks, like medium tanks are a good example, especially when they have a good turret like the T-54. If he's not meaningfully exposing himself, you can't chase shots or force damage on him. You should just go around and pick off his more exposed friendly players until at the end, like here, he's had to back up, and now I've got full flanking shots on him. The T-54 hull armor is pretty strong. It can really bully tier 8 and tier 7 tanks. So if I'm facing a T-54 frontally and the hull is slightly angled, I won't even waste my shots unless it's a desperation move or I'm going to try to track him. But there he had his hull fully exposed. In this case, I still have 4 shots in my autoloader. I could have YOLO'd the Waffentrager TD. It wouldn't kill him because he had 1600 HP, but I could just try to do a drive-by, maybe eat a shell, and then run away. But I opted to do the conservative thing, which is flank him and reload so I can get a max clip available. And the time it's going to take for me to drive around and flank him is about equal to 38 seconds. So, one thing to get really, to kind of get a good sense of is you got to practice a lot. How far can I travel or where can I go during a clip reload? And it's really good to reposition like this. And, like I was saying earlier when we were looking at the gun characteristics, it has poor gun depression. So notice I've kind of come over a little ridge in order to be able to fire down. And the gun also, like I said, handles very poorly. You don't want to burn shots on the move unless you need to. So I had a pretty huge game here. Got my Ace Tinker Mastery badge and the second mark of Excellence. Dealt 3,200 damage, which was second on our team, along with 2,900 spotted. So this is a total of 6,100 damage contribution, which far exceeds the 4,000 needed to complete Light Tank Mission 15. And this tank has been a real pleasure to drive. Once I got used to how poorly the gun handles, it's been a little wrecking ball. I'm going to continue to look at the French light tanks. Let me know about your feedback or comments in the video below. Take care.